Hello, my name is Marianne Dutton, and I'm from Georgetown University. And I'm here today to talk with you about how to think about a research question when beginning to design a research project. My goal is to help you understand the process of designing a study using secondary data analysis, which is what you will have an opportunity to do later. So, where do we begin when you want to design a study? The study you'll be asked to design is based on secondary data analysis, which simply means that you will be using someone else's data, perhaps thinking about the data in new ways. This is a way to enhance the usefulness of existing data that was collected for other purposes. Often, there is important information within existing data that can lead to new knowledge that we can use to solve problems. To extract that information and generate new knowledge, we need to think about and understand research questions and how they can be answered. The first step we'll discuss is defining the research question. What is it that you want to know? In your case, it will be important to know what it is that you want to predict. What outcome? Outcome is sometimes referred to also as an endpoint. So, for example, do you want to predict some variable that is related to suicidality? Based on the previous conversation, what aspect of suicidality are you interested in? Is it ideation? That is, does the person have thoughts that he or she would be better off dead, or is having a plan, or perhaps having made an attempt? These are important distinctions because at this stage, it is important to be specific about exactly what is being predicted, as different predictors may predict one aspect over another. A second step is to determine the predictors in your study. That is, what factors do you think are going to predict your outcome? That is, whether the person has been depressed, or whether they are anxious, or whether they have made a previous suicide attempt, or whether they are succeeding in school. Perhaps predictors relate to how much support the person has or perceive they have. Other possibilities are whether the person is involved in using drugs or alcohol, and how much and how often. In addition to risk factors, it's important to look at what are termed protective factors. That is, what factors would guard against a person being at risk for suicidality. Some protective factors may be at the level of social support, having a supportive family member living in the home, having a successful academic experience at school, or being involved in productive extracurricular activities. The possibilities for both risk factors and protective factors as predicting the level of risk of suicidality are open-ended. So what helps you determine which factors to choose? This is where your theory comes into play, which is why you think those factors would be predictive. This is the creative theory making that can lead to new knowledge. Why is it about what is it about social support, and what is it about being depressed that would help you understand the person is being more or less at risk for suicidality? These are important considerations. Once you have selected your endpoint or outcome, and also the predictors you are interested in studying, it's important to consider next the level of measurement that is available to you in the data set that already exists. Since you cannot design a new questionnaire or come up with new questions at this point, you must consider what is already available. Is the measure of social support, for example, binary? That is the person asked a yes or no question? Do you feel supported or not? Or are they asked how much support they experience on some scale from 1 to 10? It may be important to dichotomize a continuous variable into a binary one for the data analysis you will be conducting. In that case, you may take a scale from 1 to 10, for example, and determine that anyone who scores from 1 to 4 is low, and anyone who scores from 5 to 10 is high, turning your continuous variable into a binary one. Some measures for scales have already been determined, some cutoff or scales have already been determined that are useful instead of arbitrarily determining those on your own. We have reviewed here some important concepts in designing the research study: determining what is your question, what outcomes or endpoints are you interested in predicting, what predictors, including risk factors and protective factors, do you think you would help better understand what determines that outcome, and at what level of measurement does the data currently exist? Thank you for your attention.